Welcome to Cosmic Comics, Games and Collectibles, your zen of geekism. We carry comics old and new, magazines, toys, games like Pokemon, Magic, D&D. Want Godzilla, Ultraman, Star Trek, Ninja Turtles, Funko Pops? You'll find it all here. Shop our Cosmic Sound Room and pick up a record or two. Enjoy our Comic Coffee Lounge with a cup of Sasquatch coffee while geeking out over a super cool movie on our big screen. Cosmic Comic, Games and Collectibles. Superman loves us, and so will you.
It's a real pleasure for me as a longtime fan to be sitting here with Aaron Gray. Here with Larry Hama.
We're talking with Kevin J. Anderson, best-selling author.
Mr. Neil Adams.
I am here with David Prince.
Axel Alonso, editor.
Shadow Stevens. And Dallas Comic-Con with John Delancey.
With Tom King.
Kevin Conroy.
Free comic book day.
Denise Crosby.
PopCon Pop Expo.
Here on location at Star Wars Celebration.
Sci-Fi Expo, talking for our second time with Gil Gerard.
Wichita, Kansas at Time Eddie.
Producer David Gerald.
I've got Eric Flint.
Are here at Smallville Comic-Con.
Wizard World St. Louis.
VillageCon in Bentonville, Arkansas.
Michael Lombardi.
We were talking with Alan Dean.
Quincy Allen.
Suzanne Lambden.
Founder of Starlog Magazine, Mr. Terry O'Quinn.
Chris Sami.
Len Lee. Dave Schwartz. Mano Interrami. John Aaron.
This is Sci-Fi for Me, your portal to the science fiction multiverse.
Hi, and welcome to the Kickstarter. I am Roland Mann, and I'm the chief cook and bottle washer at Silverline Comics. We like making comics. I'm going to let Barb Kaalberg tell you about Divinity. Take it away, Barb.
Hi folks, this is Barb Kaalberg, creator of Divinity. As most of you know, Divinity is a young girl with amazing healing abilities, and everybody would like to get their hands on her. In this issue, she has fallen into the hands of an unscrupulous foe. Her brother Zach is on the run, trying to keep his own self alive while finding a way to rescue Vinny.
Thanks, Barb. The other one I'm going to tell you about is Trumps. This one is Trumps number 4. It's the conclusion of our mini-series. All the armies are in place. The battle's about to begin. We've got the clubs and the diamonds. They're about to go to war. And then there's spades and there's hearts. Only one of them can be Trumps. Who's it going to be? You got to read the book to find out. We've got all kind of add-ons that you can include. Original art, there are back issues, there are t-shirts, back where you can. And if you can't back, we get it. We're still in a depressed economy right now, but you can share it. Share it to all of your friends who like comic books and say, hey, look, these guys deliver. So we're asking you to come along on the ride with us. Until then, remember to make mine Silverline.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Barb Kaalberg.
Hi.
Welcome back to the show. I love having you on here, and I dread it at the same time. Always. Yeah,
really?
Well, it's like, I've asked her everything about her career. I'm going to ask it again. She's going to think I've got early onset dementia or something because...
That's okay, because I have the same stories to tell. I wish I could make up some new ones, but I can't. I was just looking at that video at the beginning with Roland. Man, he makes me look like I'm dead. I talk really, really quiet. I'm not very good at making my own promo videos.
You've really just got to throw everything to the wind.
I know, but I forget what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Teleprompter.
I could use one of those. I just put it right up here above my screen. It's like, somebody tell me what to say, and then I'll just read it. I'm Ron Burgundy. I'll read it verbatim.
That's right.
Question marks and all. It was a fun show, but I never saw the second.
I'm much better just talking unscripted than trying to remember something for the ad, where I have to read a whole script, and I'm just like, I'm dead, and I would never make an actress in Hollywood. Let's put it that way.
Oh, I me neither. I tried voice acting for somebody one time. It hasn't come out yet. I don't know how I'm going to feel about seeing it, but
I've been
got some names in there.
I've been to Hollywood. Yeah. I way back in the day. When I was working for Innovation Comics.
I remember them.
Yep. I was like the queen of the licensed property. I did like Child's Play and Freddy's Dead and Lost in Space. But I was at San Diego Comic-Con one year, and Innovation was also doing Quantum Leap. Mm-hmm. And they invited the writer of the book to come up to Hollywood for a day and spend the day on the set of Quantum Leap. And he goes like, I can't do this. I'm too nervous. I'm too scared. You want to come with me? And I'm like, oh, well, duh. Yeah. So I ended up spending a day on the set of Quantum Leap with Scott Bakula and Brooke Shields and Dean Stockwell. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Oh,
it was hilarious. And it was, just watching them make movie magic. It was what they had for a set was like, this can't be right. This looks so cheesy. And then when you see it on the screen later, it's like, oh my God, how do they do that? It's just magic.
I was surprised at how much CGI goes into just average, ordinary stuff.
Nowadays,
I would get preview discs of television episodes for the website because we were doing a lot of review stuff. Now they don't do that anymore. They used to mail it out and you'd sit down and watch it. And I'd be watching things like The Closer or Ugly Betty.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
And it would be all the unfinished stuff. I mean, it's the show. It's like, hey, we just haven't put the effects in. I'm like, it's The Closer. What effects are you putting in?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. Like when you're driving in the van, it looks like this.
Oh, okay.
Ugly Betty was walking in front of a green screen the entire time. They were never in New York. So all the buildings were just added in later.
Yeah, I know things like gunshots and stuff like that have to be added in later. The day I spent on the set there was the Brooke Shields episode, and they were in a little rubber dinghy out in the middle, supposedly in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, So we're in this cement pond on the back lot of Universal, and they're in a little rubber dinghy, and there's a little dock that runs out there, and Dean Stockwell was just out of sight of the cameras, and he was feeding the lines, and they were sitting in the dinghy saying the lines back, but in between each take, you would have a guy who was out of camera range in a wetsuit in the water behind the rubber dinghy, and he's going like this to make the dinghy rock, like they're in the ocean. And then they'd whip up the sound or the wind machine, and they get it going really for a couple of minutes, and they get waves going across the swimming pool, and then they yell, "Cut the wind, action!" And they'd say a few lines, and then the waves in the background would be, going across. And behind the pond, the cement pool, was this cheesy canvas painted backdrop of a blue sky and clouds. Like, how is this going to relate on screen? But when you see it on screen later, it looks like they're in the middle of the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
I have no idea how it works.
And they say the camera doesn't lie.
Yeah.
It does nothing but.
The favorite part of that story, though, is that Dean Stockwell had his mother on set that day. And, she comes from a prior generation where you don't waste anything. And so she's in a catering tent, and I'm watching her, and she's looking around like this, and then she's putting rolls into her purse. So, yeah, it was cute. It was cuter now.
Oh, that's funny. Innovation, they stood out.
Yeah.
Well named trademark for their company, because in an era where it's like everybody was like floppy and bright primary colors on newsprint, they were the first that I know to do the cardstock covers, or at least heavier
fully
stock covers.
Painted. Anne Rice's Vampire Lestat. Yeah. Derek. Oh God, I can't remember his name now. Oh my God, his stuff is beautiful. Yeah, their stuff was beautiful. And here's another. All right, here's another story. You said I haven't told you all my stories. So you see, they had a lot of licensed books, and they managed to get the rights to do the movie adaptation of Lawnmower Man.
Ooh, okay.
And they hired Stuart Immonen to pencil it and me to ink it. And it was 60-some pages, graphic novel. And oh my God, they were gorgeous pencils. I mean, Stuart had Pierce Brosnan down to a T. And it was just the most gorgeous graphic novel you'd ever see. It was completely colored, lettered, ready to go to print. And Stephen King's lawyers killed it because he hated the movie adaptation. So there's beautiful artwork out there that'll never see the light of day.
I mean, is this to imply that he loved all the other movie adaptations of his books?
I know.
None of them were ever the book. Lawnmower Man was probably the closest. Like, everybody loves The Running Man.
Yeah.
My ex-wife, my first wife. I'm at the point where I got to start counting now.
Sorry about that.
My first wife, she came out hating it. And I was like, we were 21, 20. But I was like, this was awesome. Oh, when Richard Dawson did this. Oh, when Arnold did that. She's like, you didn't read the book. And it was a short story. And that was nothing at all like the book. But it made bank. So,
yeah.
I don't think he's ever had a movie made of any of his books that even came close.
No, and he hates them all. He hates all the movies that are made. So why sell the rights? I don't know the story behind that at all. I don't know if it's his publisher that has the rights, but it certainly has a lot of movies made out of his books. I don't know how that works at all. So I may be talking out of my ass here.
I know the innovation got me into reading the stuff that it was based on. When I read Interview with the Vampire, I went out and I got the book because I knew y'all had to condense. And of course, I was a big Lost in Space fan. I was 8 18, 17 years old reading Innovation, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And Lost in Space was like, I was deep into it. I was like, I love all this. And then I got real uncomfortable because, they're going there.
Yeah. And I did one of the books, Bill Mooney and Miguel Ferrer wrote a couple of the books, and I worked on those. But I always had to laugh because here they are, they're stranded out in space. Where are these girls finding these 5-inch heels?
Yes, that too.
You know, they didn't pack them when they got lost in space 5 years before, you know, or whatever. Where they packed 5-inch heels to go to space? That just,
Oh, sure. Well, you know, Mr. Howell packed like half his wardrobe.
Well, that's true. That was for a 5-hour tour.
Yeah.
Or a 3-hour tour.
3-hour tour. You don't know how many times you have to change for dinner and cocktails. And
that's right.
But
and the professor's making stuff out of coconuts.
But the fact that they went to the place where, like, you know, hey, where's the next generation going to come from if it's just us? That was like,
yeah. Oh, we didn't. We had to bring that up. There's always the robot.
Well, yeah, but he was more for pleasure than for
until his batteries ran down.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, if you know you have an Adam and Eve type situation, we've seen plenty of science fiction movies where it's like, you know, you end it with one man and one woman. It's like, we're the Adam and Eve. We will repopulate this new planet. I'm like, you and what gene pool?
Yeah. Did you think about that? Yeah.
But we don't write stories that make you think like that anymore.
No, you're supposed to suspend your disbelief.
Yes. Yes.
You know, if a man can fly, then you can just automatically populate the world with various, you know.
Yeah. Robot was a bubble-headed booby.
Yes, he was.
And he
danger, real larvins.
Yeah, he showed up in other places, but I'm thinking more Robbie the Robot showed up in more places than Robot showed up in.
Yeah.
That was his name, was Robot.
Yeah, that's original.
Yeah. Don't have to think, what do you call him? You know,
Spot.
Like Tarzan's son, boy.
Yeah.
stick with what hits you in the face.
Why did his chimpanzee have a better name than his own kid?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, he grew up with the chimpanzee. They were friends.
That's, I guess so.
Boy just showed up. I was like, what is it? It's Boy. Jane didn't even correct him. She's like, no, we can't name him Boy. Now give him a middle name like George.
And then he becomes George of the Jungle.
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that. I was just thinking Boy George.
Boy George.
There's a comic book here somewhere now, I think. You left Innovation at some point, or Innovation left you, rather.
I moved on and up. I mean, I was working for, at one point, it was in 1993. I think I was working for 5 different companies at once.
Oh, wow. That's freelance jobs.
Yes. I was the flavor of the month for a couple of years. So people threw work at me as fast as I could do it. And I was fast. I mean, I could turn out at least 2 books a month. I couldn't do that now. I mean, I was young and ambitious, and I could go on 4 hours of sleep at night, and I can't do that anymore. But that's what editors like. Yeah, I was working for Malibu, Innovation, Now, DC, and Marvel all at the same time. And then I worked somewhere in there. I also worked for Warp Graphics, but it slowly kind of narrowed down to just working for DC and Marvel in the last half of the 90s. Yeah, I was working for a lot of different people.
You had said last time that you had actually inked some of Ethan Van Sciver's first DC work
on Impulse. That's right.
Yeah. Impulse. Okay, yeah, that was. Yeah, he's best known for Green Lantern, but he did start on Impulse. So.
He did start on Impulse. I spent 2.5 years on Impulse. I was only supposed to spend 2 years on Impulse. Over Craig Rousseau when Bill Messner-Loebs was writing. And then they wrapped up that run and retired that team of creators and then brought in a whole new stable. Only something happened where either the inker wasn't available or he was running late or something like that. So they brought me back to ink 6 more issues So over Ethan. So I ended up actually spending 2.5 years on Impulse.
So how does that work in comics, where you said they retired the previous creator team and to bring in another one? I mean, like, do they know it's like, okay, you're going to be writing this for 2 years and then we're going to move on to another one? I would think that as long as the book's selling, you keep who's doing it. You would
think that, yes. I had a contract. It's the only time I ever had a contract in my life was for Impulse, which was really amazing because they had this fantastic, weird, out of this world idea called health insurance when you're under contract, which was great for us at the time because both of us were self-employed. My husband was running a delivery company out of the house, and I was a freelance artist. So we didn't, and we had 2 kids, so we didn't have any health care. So that was fantastic. But when the year came up that my contract was coming to an end, they informed the entire creative team that they were going to bring in a new team. And this is not the first time that's ever happened to me. I think they always want to look for the next big hit. Well, if it's doing good, it could do better. If we had, maybe, superstar artists on it or something like that. Same thing happened when the entire thing imploded around 1999 or 98 or something like that. The 2 editors that I could always count on for work, Paul Kupperberg, Kevin Dooley, out the door, and all of their teams pretty much out the door too. And they brought in a whole new teams, anything to shake up the numbers, I think, and the sad thing about that is a lot of times they're messing with a successful combination in the search for a better combination. And sometimes it doesn't work. Yeah. It's like they say, they shoot themselves in the foot. Because Craig was just a perfect fit for Impulse, Rousseau, as a penciler. I thought he was the best Impulse penciler because he fit the character, his style fit the character. It was goofy, it was fun. And I don't know, they just decided that we had come to the end of our rope or whatever, and they shuffled us out the door. I mean, we knew months in advance that we were coming to the end. So the last issue that we all did together, we put ourselves in. So, yeah, we were the villains. We were all prison guards. It was Craig and Bill and I. We were all prison guards in the last issue that we did together. So that was a lot of fun. Now I've got something to look for. I think it was number 49. I'm not positive, but Impulse 49. Okay, and that would make sense that they bring in a new team on a 50, because that's an anniversary issue. People are going to pick it up, see a new team. I don't know. I've never been able to figure out the corporate mind, so I could get it if you could say, look, books have like slumped off for the last 6 months. You're just not doing it anymore. We're going to bring in some fresh blood. Why don't you go sit on the bench for a while? But when you take Peter David off the Hulk, and you take John Byrne off of Fantastic Four, yeah, what's up with that? When you're taking superstars who are already superstars off of books, I've never gotten it. They're always all right. So here's the only way that I can kind of rationalize that. So they're a business, okay? And I understand that because I'm part of Silverline. I'm actually the chief financial officer of Silverline. This is true. And we're always looking for things to improve our business model. And sometimes it's all comes down to throwing something at the wall and seeing if it sticks. The last Kickstarter that we did, we tried something completely new, and it didn't work. Okay, so we fall back on what we know that does work. So I can see sort of where DC and Marvel would, even if they have a good thing going, if they're seeing numbers that we're not seeing, and the bean counters are saying things to them, I can see where they might want to say, get shook up and say, all right, let's try to shake this up and bring in our next big superstar.
Yeah.
But we've already got superstars on it. Yeah, but everybody's tired of them. We'll bring them, but they're not tired of them. But they don't know that.
We're not tired of them at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're trying to get the fan they don't have,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll do that at the expense of the fans, multiple that they already have.
Mm-hmm.
I've told the story. I was at Chicago Comic-Con in was it 88 or 89? I don't know which year it was, because I was there both of them, and it was in the Ramada O'Hare Hilton. I just turned off the hallway here into like one of the little rooms, because little rooms had like little treasures in them, and nobody was in them. You could put your stuff down. Yeah,
that hot. Well, hotel was so hot.
I know. I was. If you were there at 88 or 89, I was the guy in the Joker costume when nobody was doing cosplay.
I was there.
I was, and I turned the corner, and here, right inside the door, she turned to the left, and back on the wall, this huge acrylic painting of Alan Scott, Green Lantern. I'm like, oh, my favorite Green Lantern's on the wall here. And I look down to this elderly couple sitting there, and I'm like, yeah, you painted that? She's like, oh yeah, I painted that. I'm like, oh, you're Sheldon Moldoff, shoved in a corner of a little room, with no one knowing you're here.
Yeah, I've seen that
and it was
over and over and over again in different creators like that. They're all in a little corner and they're just sitting there, kind of like, hi.
Yeah, no fanfare.
Yeah,
he wasn't in the hall.
Mm-hmm.
But I know this was the year that DC was redoing another JSA story, and it was like another miniseries. I'm like, why are they doing a JSA miniseries with this artist if you're still here making stuff that that's your team? And his wife just leans across the table and says, would you go down to the DC booth and tell them that, please?
Yeah,
like, I will, and I did.
I can totally relate. And in some ways, I can get it, because you're always looking for lightning in a bottle. The best way I can do an example of that is, did you ever watch the TV show Supernatural?
Some of it.
All right. The two lead actors on that, Jensen Ackles and
Sasha
Jared Padalecki.
Okay.
They had such amazing chemistry together that what was supposed to be a 5-year run turned into a 15-year run, because their chemistry was so it was so good that they called it lightning in a bottle, and they ran for ages because of it. And then there's TV shows where you get the two main characters and they just do not mesh at all, and I think it's very much like that in the publishing industry, where you're constantly looking for that perfect lightning in a bottle creative team. Even if you have a good creative team, they always want to push the envelope and look for the big one.
Yeah, find the next Wolfman Perez. Find the next.
It's all about a numbers game. It's always the numbers game. The thing about the big two, and I'm gonna sound prejudiced here. I mean, I used to work for them, so I still read DC and Marvel. Don't get me wrong, but I'm totally into the indie scene now. Is that they are all about the numbers game. It's not, to them, it's not, if we sell this book, can we make money? To them, is, if we sell this book, how much money can we make?
Yeah.
The totally different thing. For an indie book, we're like, if we sell this, will we cover our expenses and will we make a profit? That's what's important. For DC and Marvel, it's, can we sell this book and how much money can we make off of it? Because they've got corporate people to answer to. They've got a corporation to answer to.
And I know there are people there who know these numbers, because I've worked with, I'm an IT guy. I work with accounting a lot for different things in different companies I've worked at. But when somebody comes out and says, hey, my DC book is the the number 3 bestseller of the whole month, I'm like, well, how many copies did it sell? Well, nobody knows that, because we don't go through Diamond anymore, so Diamond doesn't report, and we're just kind of taking a ranking. Like, if you're ranking it, you've got numbers, and everybody's like, well, you just don't know anymore. I'm like, somebody at DC knows to the unit how many of those copies sold and how many were returned.
The bean counters know. And say that's another big thing is that when they left Diamond, you can't follow their numbers anymore. You can't do analytics. You can't put them up against Dark Horse, Boom, IDW, those guys, and see what the rankings are anymore. You can't see any of that, and they keep it very close to the vest. But we know that for years, the numbers have been slowly declining.
Right.
And I don't see that ending.
And the fans aren't dumb. I mean, if somebody says, my book is #1 bestseller, it's a hit with the fans, and then 18 issues later you're canceled, and then you're going to go into a six issue miniseries to wrap up the story. I don't think you were, the next Claremont and Austin going in on that one there.
Yeah. And I mean, everybody, I think also there's been some burnout. Again, I love DC and Marvel. They've been good to me, especially DC. I still read some of their books, but I read less of their books all the time because I'm getting bored.
They're still where I want to be. I want DC to succeed, but the only thing that's making me happy at DC was Flashpoint Beyond. This was happening alongside Dark Crisis. I'm like, everyone's pointing at Dark Crisis. No, everything's happening over here, guys. Because out of that you launched, and what DC has that they don't capitalize on, and I don't think they want to capitalize on, is Jeff Johns. Because he did that whole Flashpoint Beyond with a co-writer, and then he launched out of that into the new Golden Age, the Justice Society of America, the Stargirl and the Lost Children. I'm like, he's rebuilding your Golden Age platform, and you are telling nobody.
I used to read like 6 Marvel titles, and now I'm down to 1, Iron Man.
Yeah,
because not only are they rehashing stories and relaunching origin stories and stuff like that, but the stories themselves are getting so far-fetched and so complicated that I can't hardly follow them anymore. And it's because everything's been told, so they have to get bigger and better. And how do you outdo your next issue and your next issue? And it's always got to be something bigger than the last issue, and you can't keep that momentum up.
And then they go back to the thing that was a big thing for everybody, and like, but what you didn't know was,
yeah, and it's just
behind that door that we walked by, something else was going on.
And it reminds me of Star Wars. Mark Hamill was the biggest thing to ever hit the screens for 3 movies, and then what does he do? What do you do when you have reached the pinnacle? And he's complained about that, is that you've done these 3 movies or 6 movies or whatever, where he's Luke Skywalker, the most practically well-known, young man on the planet. And after it's all over, where do you go from there?
Well, I guess, but would you rather go through life making dozens of mediocre films where everyone says, "Oh, you were that guy in that thing," or make one thing that people will remember for generations?
But the point is, what do you do after you've done the biggest and best that you can? And that's where the Marvel and DC books are. Is they can't keep outdoing the storylines. The storylines keep getting more far-fetched and more out there. And while some of them are hits, most of them are misses.
Yeah, they are.
As far as I'm concerned, anyway, as a reader, I'm like, really? You can't. All right, who we're going to kill off this time? All right,
or bring back.
Kill him off. Fine, 3 issues more, and he'll be back.
Nobody cares anymore. In fact, when they killed off the Justice League, great big issue, Death of the Justice League, they made fun of it in their own book. Dick Grayson's like, yeah, he's been dead 3 times. He'll come back.
Yeah. Death of Superman. No, he's really dead. He really is dead. Sure.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Maybe not so much.
Superman 75. Everybody in the world bought issues. though the royalties off those books put the kids of the creators through college.
Yes.
And like,
the royalties at DC are fantastic.
Yeah, he's dead. He's dead. Sure.
Don't you believe it? Of course, they did keep him dead for a year. It was an interesting. Everybody followed that story. It was the comic equivalent of Who Shot JR.
Oh yeah, I have them. I have them over here in a long box. Death of a friend. And the whole thing. I even have the original. All of the creators at the time that were working for DC got issue number 75 with a letter from DC.
Oh, nice.
And I still have that. I have it in the original package that it came in and everything. And it's still sitting in there. I mean, I've opened the package, but I never read the book or anything like that because I already had a copy. But I still have the letter that it came with. Hi, dear DC freelancer, here is your copy of Superman 75.
That's
one of these
fantastic.
days I'm going to sell it on eBay.
I had the one that came with the black armband, and I kept it all intact. And then I opened it the day Christopher Reeve died to put the armband on. Because it was just like, sweet. Yeah, this is the day to crack open that fine bottle of wine and just make a statement. You mentioned Paul Kupperberg a while back, and I read so much of his stuff. And Paul is one of those guys where, and I don't mean this in a bad way, because I mean it in a very good way. He's one of the guys that editors like because he's consistently turning in stories. He's not setting the universe on fire and then saying, well, how am I going to top this? But he tells a good story followed by a good story followed by a good story followed by a good story.
It's solid writing.
I was picking up everything he did on Vigilante and everything he did on Checkmate. And I think you might have done some inks on those because for some reason I'm seeing your name on pages in my head now. Maybe not, but.
I've worked with Paul. After he left DC here a few years ago, he started putting out books through Charlton Neo, and I was worked on several of them with him. I may have worked on some of his books for DC. I can't remember. There are so many. I actually sat down and typed out my bibliography, and it's 4 pages long, double columns on each page of all of my books. And so, yeah, I have a hard time remembering what I've done.
Looking at the chat here, Mike Walters pop in the link and share the link and say hi. Glad to see you here, Mike. And he says, speaking of DC, it was an all Bat Family release this week. I don't know if you mean this week or the week that you cover the comics in, because I know that Mike runs a show. Okay, Monday through Thursday, the Mike Stand does the niche news. He's like, this is what's happening in comics. This is what's happening in professional wrestling. This is what's happening in anime. But Friday nights, you want to tune in because that's the comic book historical retrospective. Because, and I always say it to Mike, and Mike knows is like, when people go into a comic shop and they never read comics before, and Mike got into it through the cartoon shows, and they're like, where do I start reading comics? Well, you might want to try, Batman Year One here, or, pick up Watchmen, or, hey, the Infinity Gauntlet series. Mike's question was like, when did they start? So he just went back to 1938, and he's been reading them in sequence out loud on Fridays.
Holy cow.
And I'll guest host some nights. He has a guest host every different week. And we do voices, and we just act it all out. And it's a lot of golden age fun reading these.
That's true commitment.
Heroes. Yeah. So Mike's a human encyclopedia. He gets this stuff in his head and he remembers it. So he'll know when Crack Comics came out, what year, what month, who was in it.
Then you never, ever, ever, ever want to put him in a room with Maggie Thompson.
Oh,
because the universe would implode is what would happen, because she's got more knowledge crammed into her head than any person I've ever met. And
I used to love Don and Maggie's CBG. I was a subscriber for years. I miss coverage like that. I don't think what we have now is advertising.
Yeah, a lot. And you have to, and if you go to I'm not going to say the website, you go to certain websites to read the comic book news, and you have to wade through all the pop-ups first to get to it. And it's just not worth it. I had
you walk away bleeding. It's just, I know exactly the ones you're talking about. Oh, Mike says it was the ones DC that came out yesterday. So yeah, that's the thing with DC. They're like, what books sell? Okay, that's the books we'll sell. And that's why they sell nothing but Batman now.
Yep. Well, Batman sells. We're going to make 4 or 5 different spin-offs and do 5 versions of Batman. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And each of those 5 versions are going to have 5 separate covers.
According to my LCS guy, who is on our show every other week, when we do the LCS guys show, Batman sells and the Flash sells. So they should probably be doing more Flash as well.
Well, the Flash TV show on the CW did fairly well, if I remember.
Yes, it did
correctly.
So Michael Tierney's point was that the things that sell well are the things that have a longevity behind them, because people, if you end and then say, hey, we're new #1 next month, new jumping on point, it's like, no, what you just created is a jumping off point, because long-term fans were like, well, okay, it kind of sucks now, but maybe next issue, the new creative team coming in, it will be better. He said, he tells the story. So many people said, I was reading Daredevil, and then, I kind of got tired of it, and then I quit. And then the very next month, Frank Miller did Born Again, and and they didn't get it.
It's like sticking with a sports team through several bad years to the year they finally make it to the Super Bowl or the World Series.
It is. You feel rewarded. You feel like you put in that effort to make it all happen. We have talked about everything except why you're here tonight.
Oh, yes.
So before Roland calls me up and says, are you going to talk about the crowdfunder? I'm going to take our overlay away so that I can add the crowdfunder to the screen. So you are half of this season's Silverline crowdfunder, because you do it in seasons, it seems like.
Yeah, spring, summer, fall, winter. Yeah, this is Roland's and my books. It's Divinity issue number 3 for me. Divinity, it's been extremely well received. I have people come up to me at shows and say, oh, I've heard about this. We stood around in the comic book shop the other day and we're talking about this. I'm like, what? Really?
Yeah.
Divinity, for those of you who do not know, Divinity is a story about an 11-year-old girl who, through an incident, which you read in issue number 1, she gains the power to heal. And even though her parents told her to keep it under wraps, and it didn't work out that way, and somebody noticed. And so nefarious, evil minds or people are trying to get her, and her parents are mysteriously killed. So her brother, half-brother, who's 13 years older than her, he's 26, she's 11. He's discharged from the Marines on a hardship discharge, which he's very bitter about because he was going to make the Marines his life. And he has to come home and take care of this little sister he barely knows, because he's been in the military since she was like 5. So he really doesn't know her that well. And he has to come home and take care of her. And in looking into his parents' death, his dad and his stepmom, he discovers some inconsistencies. And along the way, he discovers that his little sister has got this amazing ability, and people want to get a hold of her. So they end up going on the run. So if you can imagine something like between The Fugitive and The Fire Starter, except instead of starting fires, the little girl can heal. You'll kind of get an idea of where this book is going to go. It's going to be a roadshow, on the run, falling into subplots as they are on the run from the overarching plot of the villains trying to get a hold of her. In issue number 2, they are on the run, and she ends up falling into the hands of this evil cabal. And in issue number 3, that's where we're picking up. She's been kidnapped, and her brother Zach, he has to come to her rescue, but he's got to keep himself alive long enough to come to her rescue.
Yeah.
So Vinny, we call her Vinny. Her name is Divinity. It's Zach and Vinny. not only do they need to become a family, but they need to stay alive long enough to become a family. They need to get to know each other, and they have a little bit of help along the way. Zach has got an old Marine buddy. Her name is Olivia Barnes, that joins the troop to help out. And they are all going to go on the run. Now, the one thing that I wanted to do in this book is not just be action adventure, which I'm all about action adventure, but I also wanted to have a human face on it. So you've got a little girl, barely knows this guy, who's her brother. She doesn't want to be there. She's grieving. He's angry, and he would rather go back into battle than have to try to deal with an 11-year-old girl. Because I don't know if you have kids, but yeah. I've had kids. And when my daughter was 11, half the time I couldn't figure out whether she was a child or an adult, and because one moment she'd be playing with dolls and the other minute she'd be screaming, "I hate you." And it's very complicated, and it's not something that this poor Marine is even equipped to deal with. So he's got to learn a whole new set of rules and learn how to keep her alive while learning how to be the adult in the relationship. So I plan on playing into that, like what's she going to do when she gets her first period? That's going to be it.
Yeah. Which means that there's a lot more story to tell than just 3 issues here. I know that you can get 1 through 3 on here, and when you see that at that point, you kind of think, oh, this was a 3-issue limited miniseries, but
it's actually it's 4 issue. This is issue number 3 out of 4, and the 4 issues is just wrapping up the first subplot of the overarching. So going into the next 4 issues, it'll be another subplot where they're on the run still, and they run into another situation where they've got to get themselves out of. And Roland's book is all based on card games.
Yeah, he's going to talk about that tomorrow.
Yeah, he's going to talk about that tomorrow, but I absolutely love his book. Divinity has got covers from a variety of old friends. The first few issues, you can get all the back issues on this Kickstarter, and some of the covers that you can get include Mel Ruby. One of the covers here, you can see that you just right there. The one on that one right there is Thomas Hedgeland, and the one right below it, right there with the arrow on it, that's one of my old pencilers from DC days, Ken Hooper. We did Primal Force together.
I remember Primal Force. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did all the issues of Primal Force. Yeah, he was my old Primal Force penciler. That's been a really wonderful thing that I've been able to do is tap old friends on the shoulders. Hey, would you mind doing a cover for me? So Mel Ruby, Kevin West, Ken Hooper. I've just had a lot of different people been able to contribute art. Which reminds me.
Go ahead.
There's a piece of art that is not going to be a cover on here, but it's a piece of original art that's for sale by Mark Nelson. It's a piece of Divinity artwork, but he's done it on a gray background with pencils, and it is to die for. It's an original. It's the only one that exists, and it is available as one of the add-ons. So it's comic book size cover, 8.5 by 11 piece of artwork, but it's Mark Nelson, the amazing Mark Nelson. So that's also available. I don't think I've seen his work
in a long time.
Oh, Grazing Dinosaur Press. He posts online all the time. Yeah, he's got his own book company.
I will have to look over that direction then, because I love finding new indie people that I don't know yet. We talked about all the work you've done in comics as an inker, but you're writing Divinity. I don't know, when did you start writing? When did you make that leap from the one side of the team to the other side of the team?
When I hit 60, about 3 years ago.
Why not?
When I hit 60, I said, I have been inking for a little over 30 years. If I'm ever going to push the envelope, I better get off my ass and do it. I've had stories in my head for years, but I've never felt confident enough to do that because I'm an inker, right? But you know, you come to a certain point in your life and you're just like, it's now or never. You know, you at least try. So I sat down and I wrote out the outline and I sent it to Roland, and he loved it. He goes, I'm not saying that just because, you know, I'm your friend and I'm the editor. And it's like, sure, throw her a bone. No, I honestly do love it. The thing is,
so Divinity is your first.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yep.
Even more special now.
Yeah. And the thing is, I'm good at creative writing. I always have been. Scripting, however, is a whole nother animal. So I got in touch, or he got in touch with another of my old friends and his old friends, R.A. Jones, who's been around forever. And I said, I need help scripting this. So the characters are mine, the plots are mine, the outlines are mine. I tell him like what I want, you know, basically on all the panels. And then he does his thing and sends it back to me. I rip it up and, you know, make notes all over it, send it back to him. And he does it again. And we go back 2 or 3 times until we've hammered out what we both like.
You're both professionals, so you can do that. By the way, I got my sketch from RA. It's hanging on the wall. I can't bring it on stream because YouTube would shut us down.
I've done that once.
Yeah, well, you know,
shut our Silverline stream down. But, yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, but you know, I've written books. You know, I've been published by different publishers for, like, you know, the Destroyer series. I worked on some of those books, and my first book was published in England. Was the third book of the Alice in Wonderland trilogy. But when it came to writing comics, my first comic story is being launched through Arrow next month on the 16th.
Congratulations!
And it's a short in an anthology.
It's different, isn't it? It's writing different. A comic is completely different from creative writing. I
would rather write a 100,000-word novel again than write an 8-page comic book story.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I had to like draw the panels out. I'm like, I can't see it in my head if I'm just saying page 1, panel 1. I've got like, no, just draw it and then interpret it.
At the same time, when I was figuring out writing, I developed a very, very minute tremor in my hand.
Oh, no.
And physical inking became harder and harder for me to do because, I mean, nobody else could tell the difference, but I could tell the difference. That my physical inking was suffering. So I broke down, and, you know, I'd always been one of the, if it isn't original art, it is the art. And I bought an iPad, and I went digital. I said I'd never go digital. Oh, you can't. Digital isn't anything like real art. Well, I'm eating my words now because I love inking digitally. Just turn up the smoothing control just a tiny little bit, and it takes care of that little tremor. So not only do I ink digitally now, but I also taught myself coloring. So as of issue number 2, all of the Divinity is also colored by me. So I'm writing, I'm inking, and I'm coloring it. And I am having a blast.
Well, you've seen it all done, so you know how to do it. It's you grew up around all of it. But you bring up a touchy thing. Not for me, because I happen to love it. But you moved to digital, and you said you turned up the smoothing adjust to compensate. So you're getting assisted from the computer. And then I see people who like, hey, if you ever want to draw a spawn, add this chain or add this brush to your palette and it just draws chains. And you're like, oh, I can draw chains. And, yeah, and I can draw textures, and I can, throw lighting from a different source. And more is like less
cheat
handwork and more cheat. So that now we've reached
AI
the mid-journey.
Yeah, I am not into. For one thing, when I'm digitally producing art, I'm actually putting in the work. I'm putting every single line down. I have a brush, a digital brush that mimics a real ink brush. Like a Raphael 8404.
Not a mouse pointer.
Yeah. And my stylus is basically my brush. So apart from the turning up the smoothing just slightly to take care of the trimmer, every single line that goes down, I'm putting it down. It's just on an iPad instead of on a piece of paper. So in that respect, it's still my art. Yes, it's still digital. And yes, every once in a while, I will use a stamp for a tree in the background. That's about it. And I will use stipples. But when I was doing original art, I was using Zipatone. So what's the difference between cutting out a piece of Zipatone and putting it on a piece of paper, or using a brush with a Zipatone and putting it, on digital?
I remember Zipatone when I was
God, I still have
editor of my college newspaper. We were using Zipatone, and you had to cut letters out. You didn't have, just type it in. You had to get the big bold letters and paste them on.
But if you think about it, that was a cheat.
Yeah, it absolutely was. But I know that's the big.
Yeah, I do not.
It's the Terminator war going on right now.
Yeah, it is. It is, because they're not putting in the time and the effort. They're just putting in a few words and punching a button and coming up with something. They're not actually. They've never learned how to draw. They're not laying down the art themselves. They're letting the computer do everything.
Yeah, well, there are some doing that, and I would definitely be one of those people, because I'm an okay art director. I've done that before, and got what I wanted out of artists. But like I said, stick figures are what I communicate with when I want to see it. So when I use AI, I can get what I want for a book cover. But I've introduced it to people who are artists, and one guy was like, "What is this thing you're talking about?" And I sat down, I showed him how it works and how you can, the order of events that you need to speak in and how you turn things on and off. And within 2 days, because he was an artist, he's like, this is a image that would have taken me a month to create, that because I knew what I was wanting, I took, several different images, collaged them together, and then went in with Photoshop and cleaned it, and, took out the extra fingers.
I'm not so much opposed to the actual art itself that is created. I'm opposed to the idea that the art that's being created is being stolen, basically, from other artists, and they aren't being compensated for that.
No, well, and that's another. There's a whole philosophical debate about that. Now, yeah, there are AI programs where it's like, go grab this picture, put a filter on it, and oh, look, it's different now. And then there's AI, and this is getting into my day job again, where, I'm working with other AIs for finance, where it's like, look at a model, what is an apple? Well, an apple is about so big, it narrows down at the bottom. It's got 4 bumps. It's red, it's yellow, it's green, it's not orange, it's not blue. And it has tolerances. And then it's like, okay, well, then draw an apple. And it's like, okay, well, here, we'll draw it now because we know what it is. That's thinking AI, but it has to see a lot of apples to do that. So yeah, I think a lot of artists think that all the AI is a catalog of art. And it's like, oh, you want to see this? Let me go get one. And then we'll just shift it around some. Not really.
It's taking elements of this art and it's taking elements of that art and it's mashing
it's
it up.
observed it to learn from it. If it's AI, it's observed it to learn from it. Much the way if you walk into a museum and you look at the Mona Lisa and you walk out and you remember what it looks like, you've just walked out with a biochemical copy of the photo in your head. That's what the digital thing is doing. It's like, okay, I know what it looks like. I can draw a face now because I've seen a face.
It's a very complicated issue and one that's not going to be solved easily.
No, it's a genie that won't go back in the bottle.
No.
So it's somebody figure out how to use it as a tool, or it will become. It's gonna go like this. It's gonna spike up. Everyone's gonna use it, and then everyone's gonna drop off because, just like Photoshop, wow, everybody had to have that. Wife number 2 had to have that for photo editing. Got it out once, never used it again because they don't understand how to make art. And that's what'll happen is you'll have the people who say, I can make art, and be like, I'm bored now. I can't make really what I want. Whereas the people who are artists are like, yeah, I've got a baseline here to work with now. I've got, oh, look, my clay actually came here in half kind of the shape that I want. Now I can fix it the rest of the way. It's not going to go away.
No,
but at the same time, it's not going to make comic books. It's not going to.
From the few examples that I've seen, I haven't really seen a lot of AI art from interesting perspectives. They're all straight on.
They all are straight on. Well, you know why? Because people say, draw a girl, draw a boy, draw a man, draw elephant. They don't know that you can say bird's eye view, or that you can say ground up, looking from ground up. They don't know how to be an art director. So they just, they think simplistically. I have seen those pictures. And I've seen, because I've tested with it, everybody's drawing these photorealistic kind of things, or at least fantasy photorealistic. Like, did you know that if you tell it art by Ramona Fraden, you get 4-color thick ink line superhero drawing?
Really?
Yes. I'll show you some examples later. I've got a whole catalog of things that I've played with. I'm not publishing anything. I don't intend to publish anything. We publish books here, and I intend to use them for book covers when I need them, if I can get the right one. But other than that, I'm not making a comic out of it. It's too much work. It'd be faster to draw it than it would be to like render this thing over and over and over and over and over. And
yeah, really. That's the truth.
That's going to be something we'll be debating for a long, long time.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be lots and lots of different podcasts.
Yeah. And I don't think it's going to threaten anybody's job. People who are making comics, people who are making art are going to continue to make art, continue to be paid for it. If there's anybody's job that's threatened, it's like the not the movie poster guy, but the like the ballet poster guy. That was one of the stories I saw where it was like this company was putting on the Nutcracker suite, and instead of hiring an artist to make a poster for the Nutcracker suite, they had the Rat King, and it was the rat with a crown on a black background, and they had done it with AI.
Yep.
But
it's in some ways it'll save companies a lot of money, and other ways, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
It'll be a whole new job to find somebody who knows how to do it correctly and well.
There you go.
And they'll be, and instead of being, we stopped paying this high paid artist so we can do it this way, and then it's going to shift back. So, well, now we got to pay somebody who knows what they're doing, and they're hard to come by.
How to work the AI, right?
Yeah. So it'll be that. That was a weird way to come to an end of the show here, but
let's go back up to see what's going on here with our pledges.
Yes, because
I guarantee you that another thing I'll tell your listeners out there is that Trumps and Divinity are both extremely high quality books, and they are finished.
Yes,
that's one thing that Silverline does is we finish.
You're 1602 now.
Yay! Thank you, people.
That has definitely gone up since the show started.
We finish our books before we ever kickstart them, so they are ready to go to the printer. So you're not going to pledge to something and then wait 6 months, a year and a half, 2 years to see the finished results. They're ready to go. All I need to do is slap on a back cover with the thank yous, and they go to the printer. You get them within. I have
a great big thick stack of Silverline comics here, folks, to attest to the truth of that. So you order them, you get them.
Yep, very fast turnaround within like a month and a half, if that much. It depends on the season.
So is Kickstarter and crowdfunding in general going to continue to be the way that Silverline does business?
That's not our ultimate goal. No, we're looking into ways to expand our model, our business model. So if there's any like sugar daddies out there that want to be a silent partner or not so silent partner, give us a call. We'll be happy to talk to you about becoming a publisher. but we've got some ideas that we're kicking around and stuff that will take us beyond the Kickstarter stage. The industry right now is in such a weird place.
Yeah.
With distributing and especially with Diamond. I mean, Diamond used to be the big place to go for DC and Marvel, and
it's back to the 80s.
Yeah, it's wild, wild west, basically. And I honestly believe that indies are the future of comics because they can do things that DC and Marvel can't. DC and Marvel are very, very good at what they do.
Yes, but they're very risk averse because of what they've built.
They have to answer to their corporate bean counters and their stockholders, and that's what holds them back. Is that they cannot take the kind of risks that the independent companies can do, tell the stories that amazing stories that the indies can tell, because they're constrained. They've locked themselves into a business model that doesn't allow for huge risks.
Yeah.
The biggest risk that they did was Vertigo, and I love the Vertigo line. I was sad to see it go.
Yeah, that was Jeanette Kahn, Karen Berger, and people say we don't have women making good comics. I'm like, where were you when we had good comics that the women were in charge of making?
Yeah, Neil Gaiman, anybody?
Yeah, Alan Moore. I mean, Swamp Thing. I want to say the Swamp Thing was the catalyst for Vertigo because it was a DC title. Alan Moore came on, and then it had to become Vertigo, and it didn't lose its numbering. It just changed its little imprint at the
Preacher,
top.
there was a Sandman series. I mean, there were so many good things coming out of Vertigo, and that was off
Doom Patrol.
Yeah, Doom Patrol, and that stuff
Animal
was
Man.
Outside of the normal mainstream comics, and it was well done. It was fantastic, and why they ever got rid of it, because it wasn't making enough money for their overlords, so they dumped it. Enough money, exactly. It was making money, but it wasn't making enough money, and that's the big issue.
So rather than not make enough money, we'll make no money.
That's right.
I don't understand. I know numbers, and that doesn't make sense to me, but it's what they do. I was going to go somewhere with that, and now I can't remember. I think this is an exciting time, though.
It is.
It's if the big two are in demise, I'll miss them. but at the same time, it's like, maybe something's, the field has to be burned before it can be plowed up and replanted.
I mean, there's such good books out there. Boom is doing fantastic stuff. Yeah. Dark Horse is always doing fantastic stuff. There are Dynamite has some good stuff. Silverline, we've got stuff across the board. I mean, every genre you can imagine, we've got something for somebody.
You're one of the more populous imprints out there. I mean, Valiant's down to one title a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't even know if it's the same title every month or if it's like, their books are like tri-monthly or something now.
I don't know. I haven't seen a Valiant title in forever.
Yeah, and Aftershock just went through a bankruptcy.
Yes, I did see that. That was scary.
Yeah, and my thumb on the pulse of the industry, such as it is, says watch IDW because they're probably next. I don't want that for anybody. That's what Chauncey. I don't even know who Chauncey Gardner is, Woody. You're throwing obscure quotes out at me here now. But at the same time, with every ending is something else's beginning.
That's right.
And I think we're seeing that happen in the indie market. I haven't seen the indie market be this healthy since the late 80s. Early
if we
90s.
could just tap into the manga audience, we would have it made. That's a whole other podcast.
That is. And now you've got people saying, well, DC released a Batman manga. They drew it exactly like manga. Like, yeah, but if you want to do a manga, write a series about Bruce Wayne and how he plays golf. That's manga. It's like show Alfred cooking. an entire series of Alfred cooking and the what he has to go through to make sure it stays hot.
Yeah, manga is basically soap opera with some fantastical elements thrown in.
Which
we used to have. Doing it. Yeah.
We used to do that. That's what. Oh, okay. I'm going back in time further, but I've been reading comics a long time. 1970s to the 1980s. Every issue of Batman was one story, or two. Sometimes it was 2 issues,
self-contained.
And sometimes it was like, hey, you started in Batman, you ended in Detective. That was kind of weird, but I understood what they were doing. But at the same time, even though that story was over, you had Silver St. Cloud getting a little bit closer to finding out who Bruce Wayne was all the time. Mm-hmm. You had Hal Jordan's always on the verge of losing his job, and you would refer back to events. It was soap opera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one thing that I wanted in my story is I wanted the day-to-day stuff, as well as the action adventure. Where are they getting the clothes after they're on the run? They had to stop at Kmart, which is the beginning of the issue number 5. They're at Kmart, restocking their stuff because they went on the run with nothing. So I mean, stuff like that.
Yeah, that kind of dates it. Are there still Kmarts around?
Walmart, whatever. I think we gave it a fake name.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I thought maybe you really drew a Kmart in there because if they're gone, I think you could probably do it.
No, I think it's a Walmart of some sort with a fake name. But stuff like that. Running out of gas, we got to put gas in the car. There's something wrong with the engine. We need to stop in this little town, and then stuff happens.
Yeah, because if it's just all the action all the time, you don't get to take a breath. Mm-hmm. So that you can be ready for the next action. It tires you out. You have to rest with the characters.
Mm-hmm. They end up in this tiny in issue 5 that I've plotted out. They end up in this tiny little town because they got to take a break. They got to restock the clothes that they got to wear, and there's something wrong with the engine of the truck, which is all very ordinary. But while they're stuck in this town, shit happens. And that's that's the way that a good storytelling, that's the way I remember stuff on TV, the road trip shows on TV.
Yeah, the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, he's always going someplace, and then while he was doing something, shit happened.
Go from town to town, and the A-team, they'd go to a different town all the time, and while we're here, hey, guess what, something bad's going down, good thing we're in town.
Basically, yeah.
It's like trouble followed them around. Somebody should have arrested Jessica Fletcher a long time ago. Because you go to a party and they walked in, Jessica Fletcher's like, we got to go. Oh, that's not funny. Barb, thank you so much for coming on and talking comics with me again.
I always have a blast with you.
Well, look at her throwing in the trademark taglines. That's a true professional now. But it is always a blast coming on and talking about comics industry and the behind the scenes stuff that people don't know is going on or how it really operates, because we're just reading funny books. We just want to pick up the next issue and hope that there will always be a next issue.
Yeah.
And
there's a whole world behind all those books.
So keep doing what you're doing, and we will continue to make ours Silverline. I can't rhyme it when it's plural. Okay, we need to do something about that.
Make mine Silverline.
Yes, I came up with my bracelet on tonight. Darn it. Everybody in the chat, thank you guys for being here. We don't have a show without you. We're just a podcast falling in the woods. And as always, while you were here, we just hope that you had a blast as well. Good night.